Hi, these are the top 10 films of the late 1930s, covering the years 1937 to 1939. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films. Cheers. In at number 10, Lost Horizon. Frank Capra's adventure film is full of romance and standout moments. It has such an exciting opening. We're thrown straight into the action as a bunch of Westerners are trying to escape a Chinese city as it's being invaded. Their plane is then hijacked, and then later it crashes into the Himalayas. Things slow down once they reach the hidden city of Shangri-La, as we're introduced to a utopia where violence, money, and even sadness no longer exist. It doesn't quite work, as the white locals talk about how everyone is happy and content, but they seem to live in an Art Deco mansion while natives do everything for them. They also say how they have no need for money, but then explain how they use gold to trade for outside supplies.
Our valley is very rich in a metal called gold, so we merely buy and sell.
Yeah, that's how money works. But this paradise is really just a setup to tell the audience about how the world can be. So many films of this period deal with the upcoming conflict. You know, World War II. It's fascinating to watch films plead with the world to not go ahead with this inevitable disaster. There is a brilliant speech where a 200-year-old man foresees a terrible war.
I saw all the nations strengthening, not in wisdom, but in the vulgar passions and the will to destroy.
He even seems to predict the nuclear bomb.
I saw the machine power multiplying until a single weaponed man might match a whole army.
Through these films we get a sense of the fear and dread amongst people about what was about to come. The Russian film Alexander Nevsky doesn't plead for peace as such, but has Russia warning Germany that if they invade it will be at their own peril, telling a historical tale of how Germany had tried before and failed miserably. Now you can't say they didn't warn you, Hitler. Lost Horizon was an expensive picture and it took many years for it to make its money back, but you can see the money up on screen. It's really captivating and has a great cast, including Thomas Mitchell, who seems to appear in almost every film of this period. In at number 9, The Story of the Last Chrysanthemums. Kenji Mizoguchi continues his trend of making films centered around the hardship of women living in Japan. This is one of his most romantic films, but boy oh boy is it tragic. Set in the 1880s in Tokyo and Osaka, we follow a terrible actor. He's not a terrible actor, he's playing a terrible actor. His adopted father is one of the most famous actors in Japan, so everyone tells him that he's wonderful, but gossips behind his back and jokes about how bad he is. The only person who is honest with him is his baby brother's wet nurse. Her honesty leads him to fall in love with her, but they are forbidden to be together, so he gives up his life of luxury to marry her. It sounds like he's sacrificing a lot, and he is, but throughout the film it's his wife who gives up everything to help him get through life, become a better actor, and even try and reunite him with his family. It's a rough ride, and as it's a Mizoguchi film, a happy ending is not expected. The sets are wonderful, and its cast give very touching performances. Shotaro Hanayagi, Tokichi Takada, and Thomas Mitchell are all marvellous in it. In at number 8, Daybreak. A dark, claustrophobic and involving drama from Marcel Carné. It stars Jean Gabin as a man holed up in his room after murdering someone. The story of how and why he shot the man is told in flashback. It's riveting, believable, and utterly tragic. It looks amazing, and Jacques Prévert's script is full of inventive, funny, and totally realistic dialogue. There are so many interesting touches, both macabre and offbeat, that makes this a real gem of the poetic realist movement in French cinema. Gabin, Jules Berry, Jacqueline Laurent, and Arletty are brilliant in it. Jean Gabin was probably my favourite star from this period. He's effortlessly cool and has so much going on behind those eyes. He's tough but somehow totally relatable. Gabin moved to Hollywood after Germany invaded France. While in America, he started a relationship with Marlene Dietrich, who helped him learn English. I can't think of a cooler couple. Gabin signed up and fought with the Allies in North Africa, and later was part of the French 2nd Armoured Division that liberated Paris. What a guy! In at number 7, The Lady Vanishes. My favourite of Alfred Hitchcock's British pictures. It's such an inventive and fun thriller. I love train films, and this is one of the best. It's full of murder, intrigue and humour. It's Hitchcock firing on all cylinders. Part of me selfishly wishes Alfred Hitchcock had stayed in England and carried on to make classics here. But fair enough, you know, do what you want. Go to America, see if I care. Make classics out there. Make more money or whatever. Doesn't bother me. A tourist makes friends with an old woman while travelling through Europe. The lady vanishes, but things take a turn for the strange and mysterious as people start to deny that she ever existed. It's terrific stuff and has one hell of a cast. Margaret Lockwood, Michael Redgrave, Googie Withers, and Norton Wayne and Basil Radford as a pair of cricket-obsessed mates. In at number 6, The Rules of the Game. Speaking of great casts, this features one of the best ensemble casts of the 1930s. Jean Renoir's classic is yet another film that deals with the impending war, but in a very different way. It is a subtle and damning look at the indifference of the upper class in France and around the world to the upcoming conflict. One of the best scenes in the film is also one of its most problematic. Renoir hated hunting and rightly saw it as pointless murder, killing for absolutely no reason. There is an elongated scene where rich party guests blow away every little animal that they can see. It's a good analogy for the massacres that were just around the corner, but it's always horrible to see real death on screen. The guests at this party are mostly pretty detestable, so it's brilliant that Renoir had Roland Toutain as a man not from this privileged world. He doesn't know how to play the game, and his lack of knowledge of these unwritten rules leads him to tragedy. It's a brilliantly inventive film from a master director. In at number 5, Stagecoach, John Ford's first standout western. It's got a stunningly simple story. A group of people need to get from point A to point B, but in between they've got to get through a patchy territory. It's the group of people and their individual goals and backgrounds that make this riveting. It's got Thomas Mitchell, well of course it does, as an alcoholic doctor. Luckily for him, a nervous travelling whiskey salesman is also on board. They're joined by a prostitute, a card-playing, dueling gunman, a pregnant woman, and a bank manager who's fleeing with stolen money. The driver is cowardly, but riding shotgun is a marshal. And last, but certainly not least, John Wayne as the outlaw Ringo Kid. This is the film that made him a star, and you can see why. The characters and their interactions are brilliant, and the action set piece is thrilling. It's also Ford's first film to be shot in Monument Valley, so of course it looks lovely. It's a fantastic western, but does have the usual issue of how it depicts Native Americans. They are simply there to be shot in their dozens. And this isn't the only film from the period that hasn't aged well politically. In at number 4, Gone with the Wind. This is a really tricky film to place, as there are things in it that are frankly horrible and kind of embarrassing. It's kind of Birth of the Nation for the 1930s. Deeply problematic, but an astonishing achievement in filmmaking. It looks outstanding. The colour cinematography is gorgeous, and it has this huge sense of scale, which is absolutely jaw-dropping. The music is wonderful, and the story based on Margaret Mitchell's novel completely sweeps you away. Vivien Leigh is perfect as Scarlett O'Hara, a pampered southern belle who just wants to marry her childhood crush who happens to be engaged to another woman. The impending civil war is just an annoyance to her, seemingly getting in the way of her being with him. But soon, the war takes everything from her, and she does whatever it takes to survive. She even shoots a looter/rapist in the face. Vivien Leigh couldn't be better as the manipulative, emotional and strong O'Hara. It's one of the great film performances. And Clark Gable is magnificent as Rhett Butler, a charming blockade runner out for himself. The changes and ups and downs in their relationship is fantastic. There are a lot of great performances in it. Olivia de Havilland pulls off the impossible, making you care about a flawless, lovely person. And of course it also has Thomas Mitchell as O'Hara's father who's losing his marbles. It's 4 hours long, but that flies by as you're totally invested in these characters. Now the problem. It completely romanticizes these cotton farms and shows the black characters as slightly simple people who don't seem to have an issue with their lot in life. The issues of slavery are never even mentioned. It's really difficult to swallow. And what makes it even worse is that the black members of the cast weren't even allowed to attend the premiere, as it was taking place in a whites-only cinema. Butterfly McQueen, who played one of the goofy maids, didn't like playing the role, saying it was demeaning to African Americans. She also got tired of constantly being cast as simple-minded maids, going on to say, "I don't mind playing a maid the first time, because I thought that's how you got into the business. But after I did the same thing over and over, I resented it. I didn't mind being funny, but I didn't like being stupid." She was a great woman in mind, and lived a fascinating life that's worth looking up. You can't mention Gone with the Wind without this criticism being brought up, and that's completely right. Frankly, you have to give a damn. The streaming service HBO Max briefly removed it, but put it back up with a disclaimer saying it denies the horrors of slavery. I think you should be forced to watch 12 Years a Slave immediately after, as a strong reminder that the depiction of slavery in Gone with the Wind is total nonsense. In at number 3, Port of Shadows. Marcel Carné, Jacques Préfert and Jean Gabin are back for another slice of poetic realism. This is also one of the first films that French critics would label as film noir. It's dark, twisted, romantic and really quirky. Gabin plays an army deserter who turns up in the port town of Le Havre one foggy night. Here he meets a real gang of characters. An alcoholic takes him to Panama, a dive bar down by the water, where he meets the Panama-obsessed owner, a suicidal painter, and a mysterious woman who is hiding something or is hiding from someone. While trying to find a way to leave the country, he has run-ins with local gangsters, a horribly manipulative man who runs a souvenir shop, and is followed everywhere by one of the great dog actors. It's not a realistic film, but the world we enter is so full of life, intrigue and romance that it's instantly hypnotic. Every character in it is looking for a way out. The town of Le Havre almost has a purgatory feeling to it. The actual town was a beautiful place with gorgeous architecture. It was completely destroyed in the war, and so here we have yet another example of how everything was about to change. In at number 2, The Wizard of Oz. Let's not think about the troubles of the world. Let's just sing and dance in a technicolor dreamscape. Hollywood films of this period were mostly just light entertainment. The story of a young girl who escapes the grim reality of Kansas and finds a magical kingdom where she is treated like a queen, meets the best friends anyone could have, and then decide that Kansas is still somehow a better place to be makes no sense. But it's a complete treat to watch. Judy Garland is truly great as Dorothy. She is charming and of course has one hell of a singing voice. Each of her new friends is iconic. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and my favourite, the Cowardly Lion. Thomas Mitchell is also completely unrecognisable as Toto. The Wicked Witch of the West is one of the all-time great film villains. I do feel slightly sorry for her though, as Dorothy did inadvertently crush her sister to death. The flying monkeys are terrifying. The Munchkins are, well, the Munchkins, and the whole film is filled with iconic moments. It's an utter joy to watch. It's odd, it's silly, exciting, funny, a little frightening, and totally involving and moving. Utter escapism. And you needed it in 1939, and hell, we need it now. A Technicolor masterpiece. And in at number 1, The Grand Illusion. A beautiful plea to the human race, reminding us that we're all in this together. Renoir yet again is dealing with the impending conflict. Using World War I as a backdrop, we have the most human and positive of war films. We are never shown conflict or battles, instead we're shown the similarities that bind us. We follow a group of French prisoners of war and their attempts to escape Germany. What's astonishing is that there's no villains. Everyone is shown to be totally reasonable and likeable. The French, the Germans, the British and the Russians are all fed up with the war and wish it to be over. Jean Gabin stars as the working-class French pilot who wants out. Marcel Dalio plays a Jewish prisoner and his character is used to deal with the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. He is a character generous in spirit and generous in general. He is from a wealthy background and receives food packages from home, but shares this with all the other prisoners. The friendship between him and Gaban is particularly touching. Pierre Fresnay plays an upper-class captain who befriends their captor, played brilliantly by Erich von Stroheim, and their relationship is equally touching and fascinating. And Dieter Parlow is brilliant as a German who has lost all her male relatives to the war. The lack of a villain or antagonist makes it no less compelling. It's a riveting film, with twists and turns, and at its heart a passionate message. It's filmmaking with a point, a human masterpiece and a great reminder of love in a time when hate was rising. The late 1930s was a fascinating period for film, and The Grand Illusion is my favourite look at how many must have been feeling in the build-up to the worldwide catastrophe of World War II. Right, so counting down my top 10. In at number 10, Lost Horizon. In at number 9, The Story of the Last Chrysanthemums. In at number 8, Daybreak. In at number 7, The Lady Vanishes. In at number 6, The Rules of the Game. In at number 5, Stagecoach. In at number 4, Gone with the Wind. In at number 3, Port of Shadows. In at number 2, The Wizard of Oz. And in at number 1, The Grand Illusion. I've covered 3 years here, so there's loads I'm going to be missing out. So what are your top 10 films of the late 1930s? Cheers.